Okay. Okay. For real. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We are at our next step of our pet nat series, which, just as a refresher, we have picked our grapes, processed them, we've warmed up the juice, added the yeast, and now we're monitoring, and we added our nutrient as well to keep our yeast happy and healthy. I've been monitoring the juice for about 8 days, and it is ready to bottle. I'm going to kind of walk you through how I do that, but basically we are ready to actually make sparkling wine, because up until this point we're just basically making a white wine with red grapes. So with that being said, let's bottle some wine. So when we first got our grapes and we pressed them off, I've got a Brix, which is the starting sugar level of 19.9 or 20, which is pretty low. But when you're making a sparkling wine, it's okay. It just doesn't want to be too high alcohol. You don't want too much sugar walking in, because it's just not good for the whole processing part of it, and we'll get to that in a second. And now I've been monitoring it. It's going down pretty quickly. It's going down probably two Brix a day, which is pretty fast, but like I have said, it's hard for me to maintain temperature, so that's not a surprise. No, nothing happening crazy there for me. I'll say that what we're aiming for is between 1 and 1.5 degrees Brix here with our juice before bottling. So, and why I want that is when I get it in the bottle, it's not done fermenting. And the reason for that is I want it to ferment further in bottle, so it's carbonated, because as it's fermenting, it creates CO2, and if you put it in the bottle, it traps it. So 1 to 1.5 degrees Brix is a nice number to go for. For me, since it's my first time, I really want to go for maybe like a 1.25, somewhere in between there. That was kind of the goal, and luckily enough, that's exactly basically where I got it at. So I felt very fortunate in that regard, because I could have easily been at work and missed it, or had it happen in the middle of the night. So very lucky on this. So basically, I've got it down. Took about 8 days to 1.2-ish Brix, and it's ready to bottle at this point. And the reason why I recommend having everything ready for this is I didn't know when this was going to happen. So I've got my bottles, I've got my caps, I've got everything I need here ready to go, so I can pull the trigger whatever I need to. So I do want to mention that if your Brix are below 1, you might not have enough carbonation for what you're looking for. And if they're above 1.5, there could be too much carbonation. And at that point, you might have your bottles explode, which with a wine like this, making it in your kitchen is always a possibility. But I don't recommend going over 1.5 Brix. It's just probably not going to end well for you. Just don't do it. Just do 1.5 or less. So now that we have our Brix at the right level and we're like ready to go, the first thing I'm going to do is sanitize. I've talked about sanitizing a lot, but this is the time where it's most important. It's most important because this is your last shot. Like, once you get this in the bottle, you're not going to touch it again until you drink it or give it away or whatever. I like to start with, I meant to make a big batch of the Star San, and I'm soaking all of my pieces in there, and basically I'm just going to let it set for a little bit. And then once I feel, after a few minutes I can rinse it off. This is probably, with this bottling, the most important thing. Everything has to be sanitized. I don't even let the fittings touch other things. Like, very, very important. You can also use your alcohol here. That's great. Your 70% will kill basically anything that might be on them. So use your discretion there. It's, of all the things to take from this, wash everything before you bottle. Number 1. Just be sure whatever you do clean with, make sure you rinse it off really well, because you just don't want any of these cleaning products or even the alcohol to get into your wine. It's just not good for it. You want it to taste like wine, not cleansers. I really wasn't planning on racking this wine. I figured, it'll be fine. Like, once it hits the Brix level I want, I'll just be able to pull it out. But then upon further inspection, I noticed there was some settlement at the bottom, which is very, very, very normal with fermentation. So, and I looked at it, I was like, probably not. So that's why I cleaned my bucket. I just wanted to make sure that I was able to get the cleanest wine I could going into bottle. Pet nats themselves are going to be really cloudy,
really hazy. Think like a hazy IPA, but even more so. You're gonna have settlement at the bottom, but I just didn't really want any of any full solids if I could avoid that, just preferential. There's a reason why a pet nat's a natural type of sparkling wine. It's definitely not perfect in a consumer form. It's definitely cloudy. It's got character. So for me, just wanted to give it a shot to not be too dirty, if that makes sense. So with the racking, it's not too different than what I've done in the past. Basically just getting the juice as clean as I can. Given the circumstances, it's literally cloudy going into the bucket, so it's not gonna be super clean, but I'm getting it as clean as I can. And then what I'll do is I'll basically pick the bucket up and put it where the carboy was, and I'll make a clean space. I lay down, it's gonna get technical here, I put a trash bag down on the ground. I know from experience that bottling any wine like this is gonna make a big mess. So I'm prepared, I've got my trash bag down, I've got extra towels, I'm like ready to go. I've got my bottles, I've got my caps. I'm gonna use a little thing called an Emily capper. There's like tons of, like with everything else, there's probably better ways to do it. This is my first time using an Emily capper. And I found it worked. I mean, I think it works pretty well. I tested it out a little bit. We'll see how it goes once the wine starts fermenting in the bottle. I mean, I'll be able to report back on that, but I think it's gonna seal just fine. There's a little magnetic piece there that kind of the cap sticks to it and then you just push it on. Pretty simple mechanism. So we'll see how well it seals in the future. Now that you have everything laid out and ready to go, you got your wine racked, you're kind of like, okay, let's put it in a bottle. You have one piece that's really important that I forgot to mention in the supplies video. This is your bottling attachment. And how this works is basically you hook it up to your line, it fits. And what this little like spring in here does is it essentially allows it to keep the wine in the line without just leaking all over the place. I'm just gonna say it, this is a lifesaver. This keeps your bottling from being a huge mess and you don't lose wine. This is literally like $3, so cheap. So definitely recommend investing in this. The trick with this though is to get the siphon started, you have to push, you have to siphon it, but you have to push this in at the same time, and it's not easy to do. So it kind of feels like you're making out with it a little bit. I'm gonna be honest. So I have my alcohol handy, so I'm gonna spray it. I like to spray it and sanitize it afterwards because it is going in a bottle after all. So handy, but not super easy to use right off the bat. So now that your siphon is all set up, you just have to fill your bottles. Super easy. So basically I just grab it, I'm gonna fill it. I'm not gonna fill it as much as I would otherwise. What this bottling attachment does is displaces the volume. So as you're filling it and you pull out, it creates more headspace. So usually you'd be able to fill it up all the way to the top and then you pull it out and it's the perfect height. But with my pet nat, I wanted a little extra space for the carbonation to build. My first time doing this, so it's kind of a test. So that's kind of my choice. So you can see I'm not gonna fill it up all the way to the top and pull it out. I'll kind of do like a little bit of space at the top. And so, maybe there's this much space above the neck. And for me, I'm a perfectionist, so I try to do all of them around the same volume once I set that. And then I kind of just put them aside. I want to make a note here that if you were bottling a finished wine, you would not leave it like this. When it's a finished wine, dry, however you want to think about it, you don't want oxygen on it at all, really. So you'd even want to gas your bottles, fill them up to the brim, and then cork them or however you're gonna seal it. But with this, it's still fermenting, so I feel totally comfortable just filling it, setting it aside until I'm ready. So now that they're all full, I'm gonna put them in a convenient location, and I'm basically just gonna grab my 26mm caps. I wanted to point this out. When I had planned this whole thing, I was planning on using champagne glass, which is kind of a higher end type of glass, but I could not find any in time. So I bought my glass from the local fermenter shop, and they had different types of bottles. Still a sparkling bottle, just a different style. So I ended up having to get 26mm caps, so now I have both for another time. But it's not a big deal because the Emily capper has like a little attachment that I can just switch it back and forth. So it's fine. Now I can just make more bottles, I guess, in the future. So yeah, I'm using my 26mm caps, pop it in the magnet, put it on there. I'm trying to keep it really straight. That's kind of the idea. I really want it to be even. So I push it down. It's actually kind of hard. Kind of took a lot of core there, but it seems to work really well.
Okay, so now your bottles are all filled, capped, ready to go. What I did is I put them upright for aging. At this point, it's going to be a little bit before they're ready. So I basically put all of them upright, sealed the box, and I put them in a dark, cold space. Not cold, but 60, 70 degrees. You don't really, for me, I just don't want it to get any warmer than that. So honestly, just put them away for 2 to 3 months and forget about them because they still need to ferment. So I don't even plan on opening any of mine until after Thanksgiving, which is about 2 months. So I'm pretty excited, I'm not gonna lie, but I'll just have to leave them be. Maybe put them in a place where if they explode, there won't be catastrophic damage. It's kind of unpredictable. So for me, I put them in a space where if something were to happen, it would be okay. Just something to think about when you're thinking about your placement of where you're gonna age it. We did it. We picked the grapes, we processed the grapes, we inoculated the grapes, we bottled the grapes. We're done. This was a really fun project, and I cannot wait to open a bottle in front of you guys to see how it came out. Fingers crossed that everything goes well. A lot can happen, but I've got a good feeling about it, and hopefully in this journey you've learned kind of how you can make wine at home, even if it's not this exact style, maybe some of the things you might need. This was a blast to make, and I do plan on doing more like this. I just want to say, if you do enjoy these videos, like and subscribe, and if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, whatever, put them in below. Definitely be checking them out. I have a lot of things I want to do, but I'm open for suggestions as well because everything I do here is definitely a learning process for me. Thanks again for all your support, and cheers until next time.